Hello there, this is the third episode in my adventure creation series for Foundry Virtual Tabletop. That's just by way of recap. Last time we talked about progressing the story a little bit with introducing the players to the town of Pendaka. They entered the town hall and were given a mission to explore the other town of Grimbone, from whom the town has not had any contact for several days. And in terms of mechanics, we created our first scene and put some players onto the scene and did some automation of checks, skill checks for example, for the players within the journal. This time we're going to progress the story a little further, and our main focus is going to be on creating our first tactical map for combat. So let's load up the game. Obviously we want to join as the game master. And this was the last map we'd had on, the Varesia map. We'll go into our journal. And our last entry was the Pendaka Town Hall, where the Mayor's Councillor had given a lot of information that the players might request regarding their forthcoming mission. You can see on the journal that we have page entries, and then when we create headings within a page, they appear there, so it was very quick for the GM to click on one and get right to the place that he wants to get to. Another thing you could do is, if you wanted the players to have access to this information later, you could put that in PC information. So far we've got Pendaka region map, but we could add some further information because we know that information within this folder will be visible to the players, whereas our own private GM information is not visible to them. So we could create another journal entry. Whoops. A journey through Ashwood Forest, and then we can simply cut and paste the information. So now PCs can look here, get a picture map, and get a little bit of information about the forest. If we just wanted to show information to the players once, we could do that in chat. We could paste the text in chat, and that chat box would appear to the players. We can delete that whenever we want, but sometimes it's nice to have it in a journal as well. Anyway, back to the progress we'd made so far. Go back into the journal page. So we had got to the point where the players had taken their leave of the mayor and of the councillor, and were about to head out to explore Pendaka and get ready for their journey to Grimbone through the Ashwood Forest. But I wanted to add a little side plot that would keep the players interested. Sometimes it's nice for players to have, as well as a long-term goal, to have a goal that might be achievable within a session or two. I think it's generally good advice when creating adventures to give the players short-term goals where they can feel, oh, they've got a sense of achievement from completing something in a session, maybe something every other session. That goal might be just to get to Grimbone at first, but sometimes, especially at the start, players can find their feet by completing a short mission, perhaps a non-combat mission, give themselves a sense of achievement, get the experience points racking up. So as the players are about to leave, we'll have a new encounter with an individual called Jianna, and that'll be our page entry. And I will put this in here. I'm doing my usual copy paste. And then format tidy up. So I like to get rid of wrong formatting. I don't want that in bold. This is our speech text. We'll turn it into a block quote. Have an underline to separate different sections. So, just before leaving the town hall, after talking to the mayor and his councillor, the PC with the highest charisma, or other PC at the GM's discretion, suddenly feels a gentle but urgent grasp upon their arm as a lithe figure in flowing robes steps forward from the shadows behind the open entrance doors. "Tarry a moment, if you will, brave adventurers. I would be most grateful if you would complete a small task for me. It may not seem of much consequence, but it would mean very much to me. I am Jianna, the mayor's consort. I would like you to deliver this letter to a dear elderly servant who lives humbly in a home not far from Ashwood Forest. I understand the mayor may be sending you upon a mission there, no? My request is a private and discreet one, but not unlawful and will not harm anyone. The maid I speak of resides in a small hovel just south of the road, heading northeast into the forest. Please return here again to confirm you have delivered the sealed letter. The trip is not far and will not significantly lengthen your overall journey if you come straight back before entering the forest. It will permit you to scout out the lie of the land and the forest itself. There should be no danger, for the lands between the town and forest are safe for hardy folk, unlike the forest itself. Once you enter the forest, I've heard it is difficult to find one's way back out again. Do not doubt that I shall reward you handsomely if you return promptly. Here is the letter. Please do not open it, for it deals with private matters between friends of my family, and is of no possible interest to adventurous or ambitious types. You may question why I do not ask one of the mayor's men. They are all so busy, and the mayor needs no distractions. Besides, as I said, the matter is a private one." So the details for the GM is that the old servant, the maid, is in fact Jianna's mother, of whom she is somewhat embarrassed as she does not wish to reveal to the mayor her humble origins. The letter is an apology and an offer to send funds to her mother from time to time. If the PC successfully use perception to sense motive on Jianna, deception DC 15, and then we've got what happens in different degrees of success. So why don't we automate this instead of expecting the PCs to make their rolls? So, as we learned last time, we don't really need it to be deception. It's a perception roll, but that's just the way the game does perception. It's usually against the deception DC 15. So we'll just start here, and we do at check, and the type of check is a perception, and the DC is 15, and the name, we don't want to do capital for name, it's got to be lowercase. The name is going to be sense motive, that's the type of perception check we're using. And we'll make it a secret check because, again, critical failures, we may get wrong information. So we do traits, secret. And then it'll be easier to read if we do a new paragraph. And we just have some headings. So we could even do it like this with an underline. And critical success, Control B for bold. We don't really need to glean. Yeah, okay, why not? We'll keep that. They glean that she is not telling the entire truth, but that she bears no one, including the PCs, any malice. Success. Bold. They conclude that she is not telling the entire truth. Failure. They think that she is telling the truth. Critical failure. They think that she is ill intent against the PC, some deep dark secret. Maybe she's the main villain of the whole campaign. So that's night now. Has this been successful? We'll do save the changes and look at the actual journal rather than the editor now. So we're on Jianna. So here's our text, and that seems to have worked. So if we selected Seela, not sure she's the most perceptive person, and we'll go into our chat, and if we do it, we can post the prompt to the chat by pressing the speech bubble. Now it's prompted there. So Seela, make a sense motive perception check, please. And of course Seela gets a 22. She never lets us down, but there's not a critical success. So Seela concludes that she's not telling the entire truth, but you might say because it's Seela, obviously, but you don't really sense any malice against the PCs. You could give her, because it's Seela, obviously. You can see how I'm not really a very fair GM. Anyway, so that's a nice another example of conversation encounters as opposed to combat encounters again. And if the PCs refuse, Jianna will sadly nod her head and not press the issue. But if the PCs then tell the mayor telltales, the mayor takes a dim view of their telltale actions, saying that if his lady wished something to be private, then that was her entitlement. He is entirely confident there was nothing malicious in her request, and will offer her the letter delivered to whomever Jianna wishes with no questions asked. So that put the PCs in their place for being nasty and sneaky. You may role-play this further between Jianna and the mayor if you wish. If the PCs accept, they receive the sealed letter with Gianna's blessing. The old servant is at encounter 2, so when we actually do that encounter, we'll maybe come back, change its name, and create a link so that the GM can just click the button and then link to what they want to see in that encounter. Later, the PCs might try and carefully break the seal, or perhaps not so carefully. When the PCs do eventually leave the town hall, we're going to go to the next section. So rather than abandon Jianna to her fate at the moment, let's complete that little side quest so that when the PCs return, it's ready for us. First thing we need to do is show the letter. So we need to create another page, and we'll call it Gianna's letter. And then we'll upload an image, or link an image I should say. So we go into our modules, Strife and Grimbone walkthrough module as before, assets, images. Oh, and the first one is Jianna letter. If we're not sure, we can get little clues from the pictures. There we are. Select that. We don't really need to set the widths, it usually does it fairly sensibly for us. And here we have the letter. So if the PCs sneakily read the letter, or they may find it later, to be honest, they may be shown the letter later, but if the PCs want to look at the letter, you've got it ready to show to them. Dear Mother, I am sorry I have not written or visited. I've been busy making my way in the city. Please understand why the letter is addressed to my old maid. In the privileged position I find myself, I need to avoid any embarrassment about my humble origins. In any event, soon I shall hope to send you funds on a regular basis to help support you. love your daughter Jianna. So it's clear now that the old maid is in fact the mother of Jianna. And now let's do what happens when the PCs return to Jianna, because it's still part of the Pendaka town hall after all. So we'll create another page. Returning to Jianna, and we'll paste what you want to say. We'll convert this to block quote. If the PCs return to say they completed her task, Jianna nervously asks the PC if everything went smoothly. If they reply in a non-committal manner, but have clearly described the hovel and the maid, she offers a red spinel gem as payment. If the PCs mention that the mother wants her love, not her money, and return the open letter, Jianna bursts into tears. So an encounter will take place which we'll detail with the mother, and this will be the return, but I think it's nice to include it geographically with the Pendaka town hall, as I mentioned. She bursts into tears when she finds out what the mother thinks of the letter. "Oh, look at the smudges over the ink. My mother's tears. I'm so sorry I've been such a bad daughter. Thank you so much for making me see the truth. I've been blinded by my selfishness and my greed. I am resolved to travel directly to visit my mother and beg her to forgive me and return to Pendaka with me. If the mayor will not have my mother, then he will not have me either." If the PCs know the contents of the letter, they might try and bribe Jianna instead, describing how it might come out that the mayor's consort is the daughter of a grubby hermit in a filthy hovel. Handle this as you wish, but the mayor will support Jianna if he learns the truth. And we've got here two things here that we should do. One is we should give the players a reward of a gem, and second thing is, which we'll talk about in a moment, how we will give the PCs their first experience point award. So we'll do the gem first. So what we can do, because we're working within Pathfinder 2nd edition, and our Compendium Pack will contain a lot of Pathfinder materials, if we just type in the search bar on Compendium Packs spinel gem, well, let's just, here we got spinel red or green. So here's an item here, so we'll want to import this into our adventure. And now, where it was in the Compendium Pack, now it's in our items, because it's an item type of asset. It appears in the items folder. Maybe, well, shall we create a folder and just say it's Strife and Grimbone? I haven't typed it for a while, and amazingly typed it correctly this time. And we'll just put it in the folder there. So there it is, sitting in there. And let's edit it a little bit. So we said it was 50 silver piece of value. We don't want to shortchange the players, do we? And there's nothing much to say about it, so that's fine. That's all we'll do about that. Now we can create an underline. Select it, get below the underline, and then drag the asset to there. Another underline. Make it neat. Save that. Now when we go to the journal, not the editor, we will see the item there. And look, there is a treasure item. So what can we do now with that? Well, if it's sealer, we can simply drag the gem onto sealer's token there. And if we check her inventory, we see a spinel, red or green, value 50 silver pieces. but we don't want to give her that yet. Another way we can do it is by going to the party sheet, going to stash, and dragging the item into the party stash. It will automatically appear as a treasure, and then the players can access the stash, and the one who wants it, or maybe they'll just keep it shared, but the one who wants it can then drag it into their own inventory themselves. Earlier, when I was talking about allocating silver pieces, you can we could have put the 400 silver pieces, drag that into the party stash, and let the players divide it as they wished. For example, we could put 400 silver pieces in there. Each player could drag the silver pieces into their inventory, and when they do that, it will ask them how many silver pieces out of that lot do you actually want to take, and so they could just select the 100 that they were supposed to take. So once again, another way to distribute items is to do so via the party sheet, both individual items and amounts of coin. So that was our giving the item part. What about the story award? So we should highlight this. Whoops. And whoops, we see we're in the journal. We're not in the editor. Story headings 2. And now, when we're looking at the titles of the pages here, it's less likely that we're going to miss the story award, because we will see it both in the text there, but we'll also see it as a subheading on that page, allowing us to get to it. So I've decided that we would give them a 30 XP award for completing that side quest, and I've done some little notes for myself here, because what we'll need to do is install our first add-on module. Now, one might think it's quite a standard thing to award experience points. I can't imagine anyone not wanting this module, which is an add-on to the Pathfinder 2nd edition system, but let's go ahead and do it. So we'll return to setup, and we go to add-on modules. I've already got it. It's the Pathfinder 2nd edition award XP module by Lost Phoenix. So great thanks to them for doing this. Almost, I would consider it a standard asset. So we've already downloaded it. What we need to do is actually attach it to our module. So we'll go back into our game world again. Quite quick, isn't it? It doesn't take too long to load these things up. And we are going to our game settings, manage modules, Strife and Grimbone walkthrough module. Remember, that contains the Compendium Pack, where when we want to export our adventure, it's all going to be stored nicely in that Compendium Pack module. But we wanted PF2E Award XP. And now it should be there. Sometimes when we have add-on modules, they kindly include a card in the chat messages tab, which gives us some information about it. It says that we can use a certain text language within journals to create an automatic experience point award. We can just type /award and then a number and some text in the chat message here to do it, or it would automatically bring up the menu when we end an encounter, and now the encounter tends to tell us what the experience point award should be by calculating the total XP values of the monsters. No, we don't do it total XP value. You know what I mean. A monster the same level as 40 XP, one level down 30 XP, etc. And we add up the monsters' XP values from that. So, what I'm saying is that the XP value is relative to the level of the party rather than a fixed value as in Dungeons and Dragons. So what are we doing? We're going back into our journal, Chapter 1 Pendaka, still in the town hall, returning to Jianna for our award, and what we will do now is edit it, just like it said. We will do 2 square brackets / award 30 for a moderate accomplishment. The text is going to be moderate accomplishment tacked onto there, and I've made some little notes for myself which we don't need to repeat here, just repeating that it will come up when we end an encounter, or we can do it in the chat. So let's hope this works. And we see now Story XP Award, moderate accomplishment. We click that, and it will award 30 XPs to the party members that we've got. And then we get it when we click the button to confirm it. The party has been awarded 30 XPs for the moderate accomplishment. Okay, so that should be quite clear. Now, at last, we're going to leave the town hall, and it's probably high time that we have a combat encounter. I don't like to leave it too long between combats, especially at the beginning, and so let's have one, but not too hard a one, because these could be very first-time players as well as first-time player characters. So let's get on with it. We're going to, still in Chapter 1 Pendaka, but we've left the town hall, so we're doing a new area, and it's going to be called Eel Catch. With a page of the same name. Just as the PCs leave the town hall, they hear an altercation taking place on the wharf of the other side of the market square. We'll do some block text here, and our underline system to make it look nice. Not as nice as the official premium modules, but we do our best. You step back outside into the fishy aroma of the market. Suddenly you hear a cry and the sound of general disturbance and alarm. You spy a commotion on the wharf across the market square. Of course, the PCs may choose to ignore this. This is role-playing. They can do anything they like. And in that case, we would skip this encounter. But you might find when the players are exploring Pendaka and gathering information, one item of information they may learn later is that an electric eel had been accidentally caught in a fishing net hidden among a load of fish and had escaped. The fishermen and dockhands are eventually able to dispatch the serpent with long fishing harpoons, but not before it bit and electrocuted an innocent bystander. She has been taken to the temple of Erastil in a critical condition. The priestess may be able to save her. If only there had been some of the town's militia or a brave warrior on hand at the time. So, we learn that the PC's actions have consequences. While they can do what they like in an open role-playing world, what they do or what they don't do will have consequences for later on. And I think this is nice to get the PCs and the players really into the system of role-playing, what options they have, and that the world actually reacts to their behaviour. So, but alternatively, if the PCs approach, we need to activate the eel catch scene and do all the other things to set up the combat. But first, we need the eel catch scene itself, don't we? So we'll save that, and we need to create a scene. I mean, I'm always accused of making a scene, creating a scene, but I don't think they're alluding to Foundry Virtual Tabletop when they accuse me of it. Anyway, Chapter 1 Pandaka. We've got the Varisia map scene, that's the loading page scene. We're going to create another one, and we'll call it Pandaka Doc. So we right click to set the configuration. So the basics. What we need is a background image. Now I'm going to choose one I prepared earlier, otherwise we'd be several hours. And the assets, and in the scenes I stored Pandaka Doc's Alchemist, and the reason why it's called Alchemist is only because I created it in Dungeon Alchemist, and we can look at that excellent software later. Grid. We want a grid, but I know that when I'd created this adventure in Dungeon Alchemist, I'd set 150 pixels per inch. So I'm going to change this to 150, and then we won't need to worry about those things. So the padding percentage, I don't need padding. That's like some space about in the background image. You can have padding if you want to sort of wrangle the monsters along the sides of the map where the PCs can't see it, but I prefer just to drag them from the journal. But by all means, give yourself some padding if you like to have some monsters ready on the sides. And I think that's all we need to do. Let's lighting. Oh, this is, we've got token vision. We want to restrict the visibility because this is a combat map. We want fog of war. Let's just see what we got. So nothing happened. We need to activate the module. We need to look at it. Activate. We can right click there, or we can right click it on here. So here we have, here's a JPG file of the background image there. So the players are going to come from this side, and they're going to have an encounter with an electric eel that's accidentally been caught by the fisherman. You can see we've got a bit of a grid here, and everything is matching up nicely. I wanted it 3 squares there. You can see if you create something in Dungeon Alchemist 350 pixels per inch, you're not going to have any problems with scaling the image. I mean, some people I think spend as long scaling other people's maps as they would do creating maps themselves. So that's our basic picture, but we want to do more than that. We're not just trained in Foundry VTT, we want to become expert proficiency. So as well as having this background, would it be nice to have a bit of animation in the water? So what we can do is create a tile and overlay it. This is going to be on the background layer, the flat layer over which the PCs walk. If we click this, a tile would be inserted in the foreground layer. So I know that there are add-on modules where you can lay tiles in all sorts of different layers, but you can get quite a bit of functionality from Pathfinder 2nd Edition Basic. Foundry VTT Basic, and I'm inclined to wait for official updates on this particular functionality. So got our background level there set. We can do this if you like, which is forcing snap to the grid to make it easier for us to place, and we now find in the folder there the tile. So we're already in scenes, and we want to select a movie file, which we created in Dungeon Alchemist, of the water. Now, what I could have done in Dungeon Alchemist is just taken a movie of the whole scene and use that as a background. Well, the problem with that is that it's quite a large file, and we can make it a smaller file by just having making a picture of a truncated Dungeon Alchemist version, just maybe that block there, and we still get this nice effect of the top of those steps appearing above the water and then gradually fading as they go into the deeper and deeper water. We can still get that. So we have this selected, and then we just drag it over, and it just came to the right place. So now we can see that overlaid, as it were, on top of this general background is some animated water, and because we've taken it all from the same Dungeon Alchemist map, it's all looking perfectly matched up. We've lost nothing in terms of matching, but we've still got that nice preserved effect there. Now you may wonder, oh, why didn't I just create some water and use that as the background? Well, the problem with that is that it would expand that tile to fill the whole shape, because we use that as a background, not a tile. So it's better to have a background which is the whole size of your scene, and then put tiles on top of it. So you may think, well, why didn't you just use a plain background? Because as we go in these steps, nothing of the original background is going to be visible. Well, it's just a JPG file. It's not that massive. It might be easier just to leave the actual picture rather than have, say, maybe green screen or black screen underneath. Anyway, so we've got our first step now, and we can right click on that and we can lock it into place. We don't want to make it invisible. That was the whole point. And we can change the order of tiles on the background by clicking these. We've only got one in the background so far. We can change the order by selecting to the top or selecting to the back, and looks like we can change the elevation, but I've not used that yet for version 12. So it's not an overhead tile. We don't need to worry about that. So the next layer we want to add is the actual ground of it. We can have this overlying and it looks fine, but I think if we've got a ground that's a WebP file that's got some transparency, it's a little bit more adjustable if necessary. So we'll take our next level, and you can see here that this is a WebP file, so we've got transparency, and it's got a transparent bit where the water would be, and we can drag that over. And that fits exactly. And then we can control that this ground is going to be above the water if there was any issue otherwise. If we just had our JPG, I wouldn't be confident that this would appear underneath it. And then we said we were going to try and aspire towards expert proficiency, not just trained proficiency. What I like to do is to create another layer and a foreground. Players tend to obsess over the quality of these scenes, and they get enormously impressed when they see their token going under a tree or under a branch or something like that, giving a sort of three-dimensionality, which is quite quaint in 2024 when you consider 20 years ago people were playing role-playing games with 3D graphics. Nevertheless, people have become impressed with it. The players spend a long time in these scenes, and it's nice to get a good quality for them. So when I do something in Dungeon Alchemist, I cut out the ground level, leaving high level things like walls and roofs, and I'll have that as the foreground. So what we'll do is choose our foreground elevation. So I just want it 10 feet up. And when I've tried this before, you can't go back and change that elevation. It's the fixed elevation for all the foreground. So you have to set it first, and then we can set the tile. So that's on the background layer. We activate it to set things on the foreground layer now. We find see this one that's just got roofs and the tent, and we'll drag that over, and it doesn't look much different, does it? But it will change the behavior. And we've done that. So with the foreground selected, this is the walls level, or the roofs level really for this one. 10 elevation 10. That matches what we'd put in the configuration of the scene, didn't it? We double click, we can change it. So overhead, we don't want it to fade away. We want it to be always visible. But just in case the PC spends some time underneath it, we can reduce the opacity to maybe, I don't know, 0.85. We can adjust it obviously. So what we should have now is our water layer, our ground layer, and our roofs layer. Let's check if it works. So put sealer there. When she goes from the portrait suddenly to the token image, and we have to have this token control selected. So this is fine, moving her along. Now she should go underneath here, and see her going underneath. You can just see a faint version of her because we'd set the opacity not at 1 but 0.85. And here you can see her. I'd laboriously created little holes, transparencies in there, so you can see her under the slats of the awning of that counter, and she's above the crates. We would make that probably difficult terrain, and should have really done the ladder, shouldn't I? But never mind. Maybe she would be on top of the ladder, but when she's here, although we're going to make it so that she can't walk under there, but she certainly can go under this entrance to the building, and you would see her there. And then you can have her, we've not set any of the walls or anything, but she can go right down into the water. Now you can change her elevation by right clicking to 10 feet up. Already selected. Right, so I'd done the 10 but I hadn't pressed enter, so it didn't work, but now you can see she's plus 10 feet up, and now she's above this height. Maybe she cuts a hole in the tent and jumps down, her elevation goes down to 0, and now she's underneath the tent. Okay, so that works. Next thing we need to do is we work our way down the column here in sprucing up our scene. So next thing is measurement controls. That's only for when we're running the adventure. We've done the tiles already. We're not going to add in any drawings, but I suppose on the tile or the drawing you could maybe do a map, or like a sort of north, south, east, west compass bearings. But the next thing we're going to come to is the wall controls. So our basic walls are going to be these 3 horizontal lines, our normal walls. And if you look on the screen there, you can see a nice animation that Foundry VTT has done for us, showing how we create a wall. Very nice. But just a little bit more detail perhaps, we'll get in closer. So if we do this, this will make our walls jump to the tiles, jump to the grid. So we left click for a wall, it'll just automatically go to the next grid. We can't do anything but that. So that's our sort of first level of granularity of wall size adjustment, as it were. If we unclick that, we've got a bit more free rein. We drag it from there, but do you see it going dig, 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 dig? It's in a sort of stochastic there. It's doing it in little steps. So if we don't have this, it's not kind of free-form movements in little steps. If we do another one, that's the same, that's the next step down. We go down, I think 8 gets you to about halfway, so 16 gets you to nothing. So there's probably, see, we haven't done that one to the right place. Put it to the right place now at the starting thing. So there's 16 little steps between each square, both vertical and horizontal, and so it would help us trying to match up, because if we wanted to start something at that point, it's more helpful if we have got a kind of fixed starting point than something with a continuous infinite variation. But we can have continuous variation by pressing Shift, and now, ooh, it's smooth, we can be anywhere. So if we're tracing round a circle, a small circle, I like to use this one, so you've got more continuous variation. But we don't need those. We press that to the selection thing, selected them all, gone. If we wanted to select multiple things, perhaps to change their parameters, and we couldn't just drag a box around them, we could say we hold Shift, and you can see when my mouse pointer hovers over a line, the circles on the either end get bigger. That's where we know that's going to be selected. Then we click, it's selected. If we want to make adjustments, if you want to select another one, it's switched to there. If you want to select multiples, we hold down Shift, like that. So we selected those two, but not those ones. If you've got two joining up, and say, do we want to select that one, or do we want to select, let's go with that one selected, do we want to select that one, or do we want to select that one? You can kind of, if you could control which one to select by going to this point and then going down there, travelling down the line a little bit, and it would be selecting that line. If you travel down that line a little bit, it's selecting that one. So a good way to select one line as opposed to another is to get to a joining point and just travel along, mouse over a little bit, and then you click and you select that one. So, but we want to get rid of those now. So you can see that when I'd created this, Dungeon Alchemist doesn't have open water when you're on these maps. It's like this is a pit, a sort of filled pit. But we don't want players to see this line because we want to give the impression it's a lake. So normally I might box the whole scene in, but this time in particular I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have our box just a little bit pulled in there so that they can't see the wall. So we won't have this selected, we'll have it unselected. Drag from there. Sorry, get the whole thing visible. Drag from there. And we're not worried about the other end, so we can go right to the end there. So, do Control, we can start a new line with the other one left off, and bring it down to there, and then we've got a new line to there, and then I'm having trouble using that right mouse button. And then because we got it on that little 16-step one, it's quite easy just to place it over, otherwise that might be a bit of a nightmare. So that's our first encircling wall, and now when we select sealer, there's a dark line. We've got to the edge of the map. We don't see that inappropriate wall there. We need to set some more walls, don't we? So we go back into walls. But we don't want end walls for the next walls, we want terrain walls. The difference between normal walls and terrain walls, as many other videos will guide you, is that terrain walls allow you to see through one layer of terrain wall but not through the second layer. So in practice this allows us to see into a shape that's surrounded in terrain walls but not through to the other side of the shape. Especially useful for roofs, so you can see a roof but not beyond the roof, or for pillars, so you can see there's a pillar but not beyond the pillar. Same for other objects. So we'll start a terrain wall here. So you can see they're all color coded. Going to the end there, right click to finish it, and in this one I just want to make sure it goes right to the end. Okay, and then for our tent, same thing again. We leave off the control button to start a new shape. Now we press the control button to continue that shape. And that one, and we're going to want it for these roofs as well. Again, we don't need to go through the granularity of the unevenness of the tiles. It's actually going to be showing it, isn't it? And this is going to block movement. But if something is encroaching maybe an eighth into a square or a little bit into the square, the token can still fit into the square. If it's encroaching towards about half of the square, the token can't get through. Similarly, if you have sort of the middle 3/4 of a grid open for access, a token can usually pass from one to the other. But if you closed it off more than that, it's probably going to get blocked. Want to think about that when drawing doors. And I just want to get that one going right to the end, so that one's gone large, I can select it and then I can just drag it right to the end there. Whoops. Doesn't seem to like it. Other big objects. Well, this is quite large, this barrel, so let's do a terrain wall around that one. And then another one, circle this time. All these are going to cast shadows behind them. Next we will create a wall that will be separating the lake from the dockside, but this time we'll do a one-sided wall. and round the corner to follow the grid. Down to the end. But we have a steps going up, so let's change this one. We're selecting it, hovering over it, grab that, bring it down, and we've got a nice gap there. So we said we wanted a one-way wall. We will select all the pieces of wall because we'd gone in the same direction where we were creating them, left to right according to the program will be consistent for all these walls. Double click and select wall direction right. So what we're doing here is having a wall that's only going to apply when one is on the lake trying to look up and jump up, and not the other way round. So when one's on the dock, one would be able to see the lake, but not the other way round. These are terrain walls though, so it's going to take 2 walls worth anyway to cause a complete blockage of line of sight. Saying that, do you think perhaps we should restrict something else? So why don't we restrict sight completely, and we've already restricted movement. We won't restrict light, though it's perhaps not relevant. We won't restrict sound. So we've got a custom wall now that's restricting sight in one direction only. Update it. See how things change colour when they're slightly changed in parameters. So now let's test it out. So we've got fog of war in places where we can't see. We can see into the tent now, but not beyond the tent. And as we move, fog of war is replaced by the shadow of what you can't see at the time. Go down here, and we see that it's dark there, and I'm trying to move but can't. If I'm the GM though, I can grab the character and just drag it anywhere I like. So now we've done the walls, the next thing to do is to look at our column of tabs and see that the next is lighting controls. By default, there's some global illumination here. If we look at the configuration and on lighting, correctly we have set token vision and fog exploration to be present. Global illumination is greyed out because in the Pathfinder 2nd edition system it's rules based that if we have the sunlight activated there, players will be able to see. If darkness, then they're dependent on their own vision. That's why it's greyed out. We could cancel rules-based vision and make our own settings, but I don't see the advantage in doing that. We can imagine though it would be nice to use the map in the darkness. Perhaps at night time the players may return, perhaps you might want to use the Docklands area for some other scene. So let's set some lights that come on just at night time. The dockhands wouldn't want to waste oil by having them lit during the day. So we didn't need to make any changes there. We'll select a light and then choose the center and then drag out a radius, and this is the radius of the dim light, so we've got about 40 feet there. Double click to change the parameters. You can see that actually 20 feet, so 20 feet for dim light, 10 feet for bright light, just quite a weak lamp light. We want to be constrained by walls. Obviously we want the full angle of illumination. It's a light source, not a darkness source. I like to change the light colour because it's a sort of yellowish lamp light, but it's best not to overdo this effect. And I tend to reduce the intensity of the colour somewhat. So just a little bit off. See, that's too intense. That's doing nothing. It's a little bit off white there. And we only want it to be coming on in the darkness. So 0 is zero darkness, i.e. maximum lightness, and 1 is maximum darkness. So we want it to come on, say, between 0.6, when it's a kind of crepuscular time of day, to 1, full darkness. And now those are the settings there. We update it. Now we see that there's a cross over the light, meaning that it hasn't come on. If we turn it to nighttime, the light comes on as the general scene gets darker, and this will be apparent to Sealer, who doesn't have dark vision or low light vision. She's coming within the light here. Now we're happy with the lights. We'll replicate that effect. But perhaps we should look at some animations of the lights. Would it be nice to have the light flickering? We can change the light animation type to flickering. Flickering quite quickly, but we don't want to overdo the effect, just have it sort of a mild flickering effect. Update it. So now we've got a sort of flickering glow. So now we are happy with the light. We can copy it and paste it where the other lights are. We press Shift to fine tune the location. And now we've got a kind of lamplit scene. There's a different kind of light here. This would be a brazier that might light up in the night time to warm up night dock workers, but also light up the scene. So we'll create a different kind of light here. So let's have this light a bit bigger. And we might want to make this one a little bit redder because it's more like a coal kind of burning brazier. Reduce the intensity a bit, the colour intensity, and this would come up at the same time. Or we could make it come up a bit later, couldn't we? And so that's kind of lighting up this part of the scene quite nicely. So as we go to daytime, that's gone off, and the others have gone off. And we can manually set this by right-clicking on the light, and that means it'll stay off all the time, and right-clicking again back to its default setting. So that's our lighting for the scene. Next thing down is sounds. So it's always nice to have some ambient sounds, I think, to get to set the scene, get the mood. And we're going to have some sound of the water and maybe some background dock sounds. Perhaps we don't want to overdo it, but it's nice to have something. So similar to lighting, create a sound there. And I don't think it should be constrained by the walls, because we're not going inside buildings anyway, and we don't want things like barrels to constrain the sound. And we want volume easing, so that as you get closer to the water, the sound will become louder. But we have to find a sound. So obviously you can download sounds off the internet, and we'll go through, I have done, as well as my images and scenes, I now have a sounds folder and a tokens folder. In my sounds folder I have a sound of a lake, and that should be selected. Let's check that we can hear it. So to test it out, we do that, and that allows you to preview ambient sounds just by using your mouse close to them rather than necessarily a token. And now I hope you can hear the lapping of water. We'll move it back a bit so that the player is always getting louder as you approach, and maybe copy it so there's a kind of a wall of sound there as you approach the water. We can add another sound, like covering the whole area, and this might be some background sort of noises of dock working going on. We might want to have this sound only occur during the daytime. And again, unconstrained by walls because there's a general ambient sound. So some sort of background sounds. But we perhaps don't want this sound to be localized, so we'll double click it and take away volume easing, so it'll be the same volume everywhere, but we don't want it obtrusively loud, so we'll just have it like a quiet background. And that sound is just going to be everywhere. As we approach the water, we also hear the water. So that's our sounds. We're not going to have any special regions here, and I don't think it's necessary in this small map to have journal tokens. So that would conclude our making of the scene, and I think that's going to conclude our episode. Next episode, I think we'll make the scene come to life by setting up the encounter. So just to summarize, what we did today was to add some more journal entries. We created a gem treasure and showed how it could be put in the party stash. Then we focused on the scene. We created our background, our general configuration. We then added tiles to layer on the water, the ground, and then the walls. Then we added in the walls themselves to set our lines of sight and constraints, some lighting and some sound. So thanks very much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye.